Welcome everybody. Today we're looking at the best decks from Disney Lorcana Challenge in Birmingham and Las Vegas. 2,000 player events each. This is the absolute height of Disney Lorcana competition. So the decks that did well here, you can very much expect to see. We're going to start off by looking at the most spicy decks, which made the top 64, which, that's right, includes Ruby Steel. Absolutely mind-blowing. Let me know if you want me to try this deck out on the stream. But we're then going to look at each ink color combo. So, for example, Ruby Sapphire. Look at all the decks which were Ruby Sapphire that made top 16 and kind of try and really spot the key differences between each list. It's also worth mentioning that each top 64 tournament, if you will, on the Sunday, had a slightly different metagame, with the fact that, in particular, North America had a lot of Emerald Steel players, where that is something that was severely missing over in Europe. If I was playing, Emerald Steel was definitely on my radar as a deck. I did actually put a tweet out predicting Emerald Steel would win. But let's have a look at the best sellers, because Card Market sponsor this video. Ana, Banzai are really, really popular right now, which is probably thanks to the results at Disney Lorcana Challenge this weekend. First up, we've got Philip on Ruby Steel. Absolutely absurd. So there's some dwarfs in there. There's the dock, which when you play this character, you may discard your hand. And I'm kind of reacting to a lot of these decks for the first time. Of course, the ones over in Birmingham I would have watched. But it's somewhat of an aggro deck, with the fact that you've got the Flynn Rider trying to gain early lore. You've got Super Goof to try and cross the finish line, perhaps. You've got Tiana. But it really focuses around locations. Jim Hawkins, RLS Legacy, and the Seven Dwarfs Mine. I'm going to have to turn my head sideways to even remember what this card exactly does. During your turn, the first time you move a character here, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. If the moved character is a knight, deal 2 damage instead. So I think it's fair to say we probably underestimated Seven Dwarfs Mine. Just being able to deal 1 damage to something consistently is actually a pretty big deal. I do believe it also has 1 lore per turn. 6 willpower. Pretty insane card, honestly. And it's really awesome to see Philip doing so well. Of course, in this deck, they do have a few knights. They have Doc. They have Happy. It's really interesting to see Gustav the Giant in there. It's just this 6/6 body. No sign, however, of Maui. But Pete's in there. Robin Hood's in there. Tiana's in there to give the deck a bit of aggro power as well, and protection from Be Prepared and things like that if it's exerted. What an absolutely wild deck. Of course, not sure exactly where this deck finished after day 1, but day 2 was seeded. So if you had a really good day 1, that helped out your chances in day 2. This looks like the kind of deck which really could benefit from having a higher seed, but lost in the top 64. But huge shout out to Philip. What a deck. I've got to play it, haven't I, guys? You guys want to see it. Up next, we've got Sapphire Amethyst. Actually, the only Sapphire Amethyst deck which made the top 64 in either tournament. And I think a lot of people were criticizing my view of Sapphire and Amethyst early on. I definitely got some predictions wrong with my early meta report, but I think Sapphire Amethyst just lacking a little bit of something. I do think it's a good deck. They've got Chernobogs, but no copies of Magic Brooms. 3 Cogsworth, which does seem like a lot. In fairness, on day 1 of Birmingham, I did cast a game of Amethyst Sapphire, which performed very, very well. They were playing the new Scrooge McDuck at 4 costs, which is an uninkable 5/5 body, which quests for 2. And we saw that Scrooge McDuck and the Cogsworth here combining really, really well. I would imagine this deck can do something similar with the Madam Mim Elephant, for example. There's a couple Bells, couple Donalds, couple Cuscos, couple Yzma, couple Hades, and 3 big Elsas. So congratulations to Jonathan on that top 64. Very, very impressive results, but it does look like Sapphire Amethyst is just struggling a little bit at the moment. Amber Amethyst did also get a couple of top cut finishes, I believe only in America, but this is a deck I thought would do pretty okay this weekend, and I'm a bit surprised that it didn't get higher than top 64. I was actually watching one of the games on the stream from America quite late at night, and this deck was winning in terms of being a high seed on Swiss. That's kind of the money thing to do, right? If you can get a really high seed in Swiss with Amber Amethyst, in day 2, you're going to get to go first all the time, and you're just going to be able to steamroll your opponents. Unfortunately, the problem this deck ran into was the fact that it got absolutely beaten by Ruby and Sapphire. Those little Sisus can be a real problem. And Jason, I'm not sure if it was Jason or the next deck we're looking at, despite going first twice, just wasn't quite able to get 2 wins while going first against Ruby Sapphire. All it takes is one little slip up. The deck itself is very clean. the lack of brooms. Oh, the brooms are there. Okay, I was going to say the lack of brooms really hurt my heart. The Pascal, I think, is like the most flexible card in this list. It's very, very close to exactly how I would play it. The Pascal, I think, is very good. I'm not sure I would play Simba either. The Simba actually is probably the card which jumps out to me as the most replaceable. Not that Simba's bad. It's just usually with this deck on turn 2, you just want to go for 2/1 drops. You don't actually want to play that Simba down. I think the Amethyst Chromacon is good. You just don't want to play it too early. This deck is a lot harder to play than it initially appears. But I think this is a pretty good list by Jason. So congratulations to them. Up next, we've got Lewis, who is also on the same deck. It Calls Me is in there, which is honestly very weird. What? Draw a card, then choose up to 3 cards from chosen opponent's discard and shuffle them into their deck. There's also Nala. Nala's kind of spicy. I actually quite like the idea of Nala. So they're playing Nala instead of that Pascal. And they're also playing Boss on a Roll, which honestly, the Boss on a Roll, I like this list. I don't know about It Calls Me. Draw a card. So you could play it, Boss on a Roll, put Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom on top, and then It Calls Me. You're digging for your burn cards. Burn. What I mean by burn is things that just gain laws. So Goats, Gathering Knowledge, Boss on a Roll. I honestly like the addition of Boss on a Roll quite a lot, actually, with the Amethyst Chromacons. Honestly, I like this one a lot. I like the Nala. Not convinced by Simba still, but interesting that both decks which made top cut are both on Simba. Let me know what you guys think about Simba in Hyper Aggro. Not convinced by the It Calls Me. The rest, though, the Nala's good. I would probably prefer Pascal to Nala. But it's definitely interesting to see Nala actually making a deck. And then there's no Mims, actually, right? So there's no Mims in this one. Interestingly, I had a discussion with Bjorn over in Europe, who was playing a similar kind of list without the Mims. I personally feel like the Madden Mims are far too good not to play. But it's really interesting to see a build without the Mims can make it. For me, I would just replace It Calls Me and Simba with Madden Mim Fox, Madden Mim Snake. And then maybe the Nala for Pascal, or maybe Nala for something else entirely. Maybe 2 of each. And then that's how I would play the deck. So Hyper Aggro is still looking pretty solid. Fair play. Up next, we have Steel Amethyst. This was over in Europe. Shout out to David up in Scotland. And I was watching their top 64 game. They were pretty unlucky not to quite make it through, eventually losing to a player that did make the top 8. And I was really excited to see this deck in action. Chernobog's Magic Brooms and the Library. Also Mickey Mouse, Food Fight Defender. Underestimating him is a recipe for disaster. 1 Fire Cannons, 1 Baboom, 1 Lawrence, 2 Crabs, and then 3 Strength, 3 Zeus, 1 Castle, 3 Libraries, 4 Elsa, 3 Tinks. It's a really, really interesting deck. For me, I still love the Tiny Tink in this kind of deck. Not the easiest thing to fit, but I really like the build overall. 3 Libraries, 1 Castle. I feel like maybe you could be a little bit higher in terms of locations. I feel like that's maybe what this deck wants to do most, is just kind of get that maximum value off of locations. I could maybe see an argument for like 4 Libraries, 2 Castles. Again, I haven't actually played this deck myself. I definitely like the 4 Elsas. Strength, not a huge fan of overall. I'm still not personally that sold on the Mickey Mouse either. As much as I do like this card, it's just, I don't know if it's really doing enough in the deck for my taste. I like the card, I'm just not sure I like it here. But I do like the build other than that quite a lot. I would probably tweak a couple of things, and it would be interesting to see how David would change things after having played a huge tournament. But huge shout out to them. What a deck. What a guy. Alright, onto the Ruby Sapphire decks. There's a lot. This one's got King Candy. Now, Vision of the Future is one of the best performing cards of the weekend. And bear in mind, we are going to look at the tournament winning deck as well from Birmingham, which was Ruby Sapphire. Only 3 Fishbone Quills. Kind of boggles the mind a bit still how people would only play 3 Fishbones. I really would struggle to ever not play 4, but there you go. Great Stone Dragon, I think, was performing pretty well this weekend from what I hear. 1 copy of King Candy, which I really like to see. It is a card I do think is pretty strong, but it is another uninkable. They do have 4 dragons. They do have 2 Be Prepared and 3 Sisus. All right. There's so many Ruby Sapphire decks, so let's get through them. This one's also on Hideaway. Queen of Hearts. Little Sisu. In fact, did this one not actually have Little Sisus? That is really interesting. No Little Sisus from Justin. This one's only got 1 Daring Visitor Sisu, but it does have 2 Queen of Hearts to help the aggro matchup a bit. There's some Adam Medusas in there. There's some Sisus. Pretty interesting list. Up next, we've got Daniel Holt. Shout out to Daniel. And they got top 16 Ruby Chromacon. 1 copy, 2 copies of Queen of Hearts, 3 ice blocks, 3 daring visitor Sisus, just 2 brawls, 1 B prep, 4 big Sisus, and they've gone for the Cuzco instead of the hideaways. Up next, as we get closer to the winning deck, we've got Jonathan, who won a Golden Mickey with 3 Gastons, 2 Vitalis Spheres, only 3 Vision of the Future, but 4 Brawls, only 3 Fishbone Quills. Again, I guess now that you've got Tipo, maybe the Fishbone Quill isn't quite as needed, but I don't know, man. I would always play 4 personally. Let me know what you think on that. 1 Scar is a tasty little option up in the top end as well, but no human Sisus either. Up next, in first place, Federico, who won Birmingham, does have 4 Fishbone Quills, only 3 Vision of the Future. They've gone for Hideaway over Cuzco. They've got a Fang Crossbow, which is absolutely tremendous in the mirrors. It really, really impressed me when I watched this. You can banish this item and banish Chosen Dragon character. In the mirror, that's going to hit Sisus. It's going to hit Maleficence. Really, really strong. Also very, very tasty to have a single copy of Mufasa, which I don't think I saw them play. They're also on the Great Stone Dragon. But this is the tournament winning deck. Federico, an absolutely brilliant player. Big congratulations to them. Really nice to have met them. All right. We do actually have one more Ruby Sapphire, which is a top 4. Sorry, this is in the wrong order. Dig a little deeper. I don't think Dig a Little Deeper is good enough to make these decks anymore. I actually think it was a really inspired decision to play this card by Dinkan last set. But I think Vision of the Future is kind of like Dig a Little Deeper, right? Do you really need like this 8-cost uninkable card in the deck? I'm not convinced that you really do. The deck got quite a lot of new tools. Things like Cuzco, Vision of the Future, Hideaway, Tipo. I think it's quite hard to justify, including this Dig a Little Deeper now. But Rice Master still absolutely popping off, getting into the top 4. Big congratulations. And another Birmingham item deck. This one's actually all in on the items with the Queen, and it did get top 8. So the Queen version of this deck still performing really, really well. Of course, we saw Ely win it in Bologna with the Queen item build. 4 ice blocks is a big benefit of this one. Of course, Maurice's Workshop giving you that really good draw power as well. 2 dimes, 1 big dragon, 3 Sisus. Very, very interesting to see that Ruby Sapphire can go 2 very, very different ways. And even though a lot of the builds are quite similar, there's 2 distinct different builds now with the Queen version and the non-Queen version. And there's definitely a lot of differences between the builds here. But yeah, this one from Federico, the Fang Crossbow to help in the mirror, absolutely inspired. 1 Mufasa. I really like it. Good job, Federico. If there's one thing I'm surprised by, it's not playing 4 Vision of the Futures, to be honest with you. I feel like the card is just very, very good. But hey, there we go. We do have another one here. Vision of the Future. All right, let's move on. Ruby Sapphire, we've seen enough of you. Emerald, Amethyst. Another very well-performing deck this weekend across the board. There's a lot of lists to look through, including a 2nd place finish in Europe. Up first, we've got Scott in North America. The Olaf's a bit weird. So these decks, guys, I feel like a lot of people build these decks quite weirdly, and there's a lot of flexibility in the way you build them. So I'm going to be really interested to see the differences. We've had a lot of discussion over this exact deck and kind of like a deck building philosophy. I like to play a lot of 4-ofs of things and 3-ofs, and just having like 1 copy of things to me, not always, but often just feels a bit off. So it's going to be interesting to see how these ones are built. For me, instantly, Olaf, like, surely there's got to be something better than Olaf. I mean, there's Chernobyls and Magic Brooms, guys. I could never personally play Olaf over a Chernobyls or a Magic Broom, but that's maybe just me. 2 copies of Cogsworth. I'm not really sure I'm a huge believer in Cogsworth overall either, but there we go. I think Cogsworth does have some interesting utility, but again, I would always play a Magic Broom or Chernobyl over it, but we all know that. Only 3 copies of Friends on the other side. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, Scott. Scott just doesn't care. He's just doing his thing. He got regional qualifiers with this. Does it mean the deck's optimal? 3 Friends on the other side. That is really, really interesting. Personally, I would always play 4, as I'm sure many of you would agree. Interesting to see, though, there's 4 copies of this Ursula Sea Witch Queen. This card is an absolute powerhouse, of course. You can shift it onto Ursula Deceiver. I actually like the idea of going heavy on this. 3 Clarabelles, 2 Elsas, 2 Crickeys, 2 You Welcomes. You Welcome performed very well when I saw it this weekend in this deck. Only 1 kit. I would like to see more kits in the deck. Up next, really interested to see the differences in these ones. We've got Dennis Wang, who's on Cursed Merfolk, you guys know me. I love a Cursed Merfolk. I think with the bounce package, a card which quests for 2 is a really good idea because it's going to give you a better matchup into Ruby and Sapphire. If you go back to my content creator set champs from Ursa's Return deck, which was Amethyst Steel, I had 3 copies of that Maleficent 1-drop for exactly that reason, to just improve your matchup against those really heavy aggro decks. And Cursed Merfolk also applying a little bit of discard and hand pressure. Only 2 copies of Banzai. It is uninkable, and they've gone for the Merfolk instead. Sir Hiss is in there probably as a way of dealing with Diablo. Speaking of Diablo, you've got Pegasus plus Crab. You've got Cloud Kicker. So quite a lot of ways. You've got Elsa as well in the later game. 3 Lyles I like the look of. I think 3 is a nice number for Lyle. 4 Crabs is a lot, but honestly, Crab is very, very good against Steel Song, being able to go like Fox Crab to remove a location, to remove Cinderella Stout-Hearted against Steel Song. 2 You're Welcomes. Of course, you can sing this with the goats. I actually like the look of this build quite a bit. Not sure about Sir Hiss. Probably would personally play 3 kits. I do like this one a lot, though, from Dennis. I certainly prefer it to the previous build. Up next, are we going to see any with Chernobog's and Brooms? Well, this one from Bryant, also in the top 16, does have Chernobog's, does have Pegasus, Banzai times 3, 3 Sir Hiss, 1 Arna, 1 Emerald Chromicon. Emerald Chromicon, absolutely incredible card. I think it would be foolish not to play 1 copy of it in this deck. I saw it putting in so much work on one of the top tables when I was spectating during my break. 2 Lars, 1 Kit, 3 Crabs, 1 Cricky, 1 Library. Pretty similar list overall, but there's definitely some key differences. This one from Morgan in the top 8 in North America, also on the Cursed Merfolk. 2 Banzai, 2 Bibbidi Bobbidi Boob. I beg your Bibbidi Bobbidi pardon. Okay, this one is spicy. They've got Ursula, Deceiver of All, Friends, Sudden Chill. Sudden Chill is a great card, especially when you're not expecting it. Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, like, what is your target with Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo? Well, you can go Ursula, Deceiver of All on a goat or a rabbit for absolute insanity. There's also a 1/3 drop Clarabelle. I do like the look of this list quite a bit. I don't dislike the idea of Sudden Chill either, but I feel like without Prince John, you can definitely surprise a lot of people and you can farm wins. I would imagine in the open deck lists, this gives people a lot of things to think about. So I actually don't dislike the Sudden Chill to Ursula either. It's a little bit awkward. It's not going to be that consistent, but I honestly quite like it. Like, Ursula Singing Friends is so much value. I have been surprised that we haven't seen more Amethyst Emerald decks try Ursula Deceiver of All, and Sudden Chill is just a great card to sing twice, even without that Prince John. I like this one too. We've got much more Emerald Amethyst to look through. Oh, is this really the last one? No, this is the second place one from Europe, but then there's a few more to look through from Europe. So this one's Jonathan, who did finish in second place. Only 1 copy of that Cursed Merfolk. Of course, they did end up losing the final 2 Ruby Sapphire, and maybe more Cursed Merfolk instead of like Rafiki's could help there. But Rafiki in the mirror matchup, guys, absolutely incredible. Whenever this challenges a hyena character, this character takes no damage from the challenge. Well, look, Banzai, hyena. Rafiki in the mirror is absolutely popping off. That is really, really cool to see Rafiki's hyena ability actually being relevant. 1 copy of Cogsworth. I feel like if you are going to play Cogsworth, 1 copy is probably the right amount, as it is just like that kind of toolbox concept. 2 Mother Gothels, 2 Kits, 3 Lyles. I like the top end quite a bit. 1 Bell, bit of surprise value. We actually did see Jonathan really pop off with this Bell. They moved like 3 damage counters from their Clarabelle onto an opponent's Cinderella or something. It was a huge moment in that game. So that's definitely an interesting thing about playing 1 and 2 ofs. And of course, when you're playing Amethyst, you can bounce that card back multiple times, potentially. 2 big Mother Gothels as well. 2 big Ursulas. Very, very nice list. Very, very cool to see. Good job, Jonathan. Very lovely person as well. Up next, top 16, we've got 4 Merfolks, 4 Pegasus, 4 Banzai. This one's like much more 4 copies of everything. We've also got Madam Mims. We've got the Maleficent 3-drop. We've got Belle and Elsa. Up next, we have a top 8 Mickey winner, and this one's on Lyles times 3. No Merfolk here, but does have a couple copies of the Chernobog's followers. And Sir Hiss is in there as well to help against the Diablo in the early game. You've also got Pegasus plus Crab in the early game, and then slightly later on Elsa. You're welcome. 3 copies of that, so they're definitely liking You're Welcome. Of course, you can sing it with the rabbit and the goat and send those away. Send something like a Clarabelle away, or use it offensively as well. So big congratulations to SMP. Up next, Amber Emerald time in the top 16. we from Birmingham have this build, and Be Our Guest is the kind of card which stands out as the flex slot. Often these lists are very, very tight. You play 4 copies of everything, including Kida and Bruno. However, Hjalvo here deciding to go for just 3 copies of Kida, 3 copies of Bruno, which certainly surprises me. Strike a Good Match, actually, the other card which jumps out. Honestly, I like the addition of Strike a Good Match a lot. I'm very unconvinced by Be Our Guest, but Be Our Guest can definitely dig you to find the card you need at the right moment. Prince John, Kida. I just think like 4 Kidas, 4 Brunos are 2 of the cards I would never drop down. But these lists are so tight, so in order to fit in extra things, some stuff does have to go. There's no copies of Painting the Roses Red either, worth mentioning. So Strike a Good Match being played over Painting the Roses Red. Painting the Roses Red obviously has very nice synergy with the Muses. Strike a Good Match has the ability though to discard uninkables. Things like Diablo can be pretty troublesome if you hit 2 Under the Seas as well. Being able to discard one of them could be a really nice option. So that's definitely interesting. Be Our Guest, Strike a Good Match over Painting the Roses Red, and maybe 2 extra copies of Kida and Bruno. I think there's some more. Looks like that was the only Amber Emerald deck that made the top 16. In fact, so no Amber Emerald even winning a Mickey this weekend, which is definitely a bit of a surprise to me. But what did tremendously well over in Vegas and barely even scratched the surface in Europe. I do believe we had someone in the top 32 on Emerald Steel, but Emerald Steel is everywhere in the top 16 here in Vegas. Again, I did actually make a prediction on my Twitter that Emerald Steel would win Birmingham, so I was half right. Captain Hook in this one, quite a slow card. Curse Merfolks and Prince Johns. I do like the look of this build quite a bit. It's similar to how I would build it. I wouldn't play Captain Hooks. Hypnotize, 2 copies of that. I think that's a really nice card to have in there. I think Zan was playing 4 copies of Hypnotize, because basically what you really want in these decks is guaranteed instant discard. This is very comparable to the kind of Friar Tuck decks which I was playing back in set 3, with the Diablo being the obvious addition as well as Pete. But apart from that, it's pretty much the same deck that we played in set 3. The Captain Hook for me is too slow. I wouldn't play Captain Hook. I didn't play Captain Hook way back when. I think this deck is lacking a tiny little bit of discard, maybe some extra Hypnotize cards, maybe a couple of Friar Tucks here or there. I think could have been a nice option, but congratulations to Ian. In the top 4, we have Taylor, who's on Morph, Hidden Cove, Anna, 4 Hypnotize, 2 Muses, 2 Big Tinks. So this deck's got a little bit more of a top curve with the fact that there's Tink and Bruno. I don't think the previous deck had Bruno either, which I would play Bruno as well. So this one's looking much more close to what I'd play. Admittedly, the Muses is not a card which I would have put in my list, but I saw it performing so well for Zan that I think it was an inspired choice. In fact, this might be the same list that Zan played, so perhaps they prepped together. 2 Annas. Very, very flexible card. It's a card I liked the look of a lot. And of course, again, when we looked at Card Market earlier, who do sponsor today's video, Anna now the most popular card on Card Market right now, and for good reason. The fact that Anna can discard a card, but then if your opponent has no cards left in hand, you've got the flexibility of doing something else. That's why she's so strong, and particularly when combined with Steel, because banishing damage character should be pretty easy. Also, Steel can struggle to deal with locations often, so that extra 2 strength is not irrelevant. Even just giving like your Ursula, turning her into a 3/3, Pete into a 5/3. Pete also able to sing Storm Rage on strength. Yeah, this is very, very close to the kind of list I would have played. I absolutely love the look of it. This looks like a tremendous deck, and I'm unsurprised to see it doing so well. Another Emerald Steel deck in the top 2, Chris. Very similar list. 4 Annas, which honestly does seem like a lot. Diablo, no Hidden Cove, but also everything else just looks very, very clean. 4 Hypnotize, 4 Brunos, 4 Tinks. This is what I'm talking about when I say I like seeing decks with 4 copies of everything, which, funnily enough, I say that, and then I criticize the Anna. This is just someone that knows what they want. I do think, though, that like these 2 Annas being dropped down for 2 Hidden Coves could have been a really nice option. 4 Annas does feel like a lot. As good as the card is, and in this deck it can sing Strength and Storm, it's not able to sing Bruno. 4 Big Tinks also maybe feels like a lot, although with Morph, I think it's great. The list looks so good, honestly. This just looks like my kind of deck. It really, really does. And the winner, Zan Syed, who is also on Emerald Steel. Emerald Steel absolutely dominating North America. Hidden Cove ×2 for 2 Annas. So there's also, instead of 2 Tinks, there's 2 Muses. So here's when we kind of get onto this interesting discussion about deck building philosophy. both players with 4 copies of almost every single card, which I've said to you guys in the past. That's how I personally like to build my decks, because you just get the best card in the deck and you put 4 copies of it in. But Chris here, you could argue, has kind of fallen victim for that philosophy a little bit too much in comparison to Zan, where they've got those 4 Annas, 4 Tinks, whereas that's where Zan maybe has decided, okay, well, this is where I can maybe play 2 copies of certain cards, 2 Hidden Coves, 2 Muses, 2 Tinks, 2 Annas. Really, really interesting to see. Very subtle difference. In the mirror, the Muses absolutely popped off for Zan. It really, really did. Of course, worth mentioning, by playing the Muses, Zan is also playing 2 less uninkables as well, which is definitely significant. So an uninkable count of 2, 6, 10, 14... 14 for Zan and 16 for Chris. But of course, Storm Rage on draws you a card. I always count it as like half an uninkable when you're kind of doing that count. But big congratulations to all these Emerald Steel players holding it down for Emerald. I predicted Emerald was the best deck or best ink color in the set. They proved me right, kind of, maybe. Really interesting there was so little in Birmingham. This is the deck I missed. Sorry, it was Amber Emerald, but it's a hyper aggro Amber Emerald deck. No sign of the Queen, unfortunately. But wow, isn't that amazing to see a hyper aggro deck getting in the top 16? Really interesting to see that it wasn't actually a Amethyst deck. And this one is on Daisy Duck, 1 Merfolk, 4 Lilos, 4 Pegasus, 4 Queen. Very similar to the list I saw in Sweden. I kind of critiqued and saying I didn't know if I liked it that much. But Clarabelle as a way of redrawing. You've got Chernobog in there. This is very similar to the list which I saw in Sweden, which it was the top cut after Swiss and then finished in second. I was kind of critical of it in my last video, but that really shows what I know, huh? Sven's in there, Rapunzel's in there. This looks like a spicy list. I'm really, really impressed that this did so well. Big job. Good job, Clara, getting top 16 qualification. Wow. Wow. What a deck. Wow. Damn, I missed that one. Another Amber Emerald deck. This actually makes more sense. There was a top 8 one. I just got my list kind of muddled up here in my tabs. Painting the Roses Red is in here. There is still 1 BR Guest. I don't really get the BR Guest. 1 Anna, which seems like a nice option. 1 Naveen is very, very, very tasty. Naveen can play Benecessity, Sudden Chill, Painting the Roses, BR Guest, or Bruno. I actually like the idea of a 1 of Naveen. That sounds pretty nice. Only 3 Muses I can get behind. Only 3 You Have Forgotten Me. I struggled to get behind. I would play 4 of that card, but they do have 4 Kita for Bruno. I criticised the last list for only having 3 of each. So it is really difficult to fit everything in these ones. Mother Gothel's pretty interesting, actually. I like the idea of it because you can bounce something back and then sing something to discard that very card. So I like the look of this list quite a lot by Kevin, who got a Golden Mickey. Congratulations. Steel Sapphire also got itself a Golden Mickey with a Merlin's Cottage. Each player plays with the top card of their deck revealed. Are you kidding me? Merlin's Cottage. So that's pretty interesting. No doubt. It's got 7 willpower. Is it an advantage for you to have the top card of your deck revealed and your opponent not? Well, I suppose it is when you're playing Porpsicles and Fortis Spheres. Only 3 Fortis Spheres, bear in mind, though, which is interesting. You see what is on top of your deck? You know if you can just play the Popsicle to draw it. That is actually pretty damn interesting. No Captain Hooks, but there is Argus to help with locations. There's Smee. There's 1 Tipo, 1 Vision, 3 Mickey, 3 Pete, 2 Chempos, 4 Cogsworth, 3 Let It Goes, which is a lot. Ariel, probably the star of the show here. 3 Tamatoas. Big shout out to Jonathan, who proved Sapphire Steel is still a good deck. Ruby Sapphire up next. I think there's a couple of them to look at. 3rd place in Las Vegas. Christian, Chernobog's Brooms. That's what we like to see. No copies of the library. There is Flynn Rider, 2 Cusco. Only 1 Brawl. Wow, that is very, very interesting. Only 3 Sisu, 2 B Kings, 4 Elsas, only 2 Mauis, 1 Tremaine, 3 Medusas, 4 B-Brown. Wow. We're cutting Mauis now? This is a really, really very, very interesting list. If I saw this list from someone at my locals saying, can you review my deck? I would say, yeah, okay, why not just play 4 Sisus? Why not just play 4 Mauis? But maybe that just shows what I know, because Christian absolutely popping off with this Ruby Amethyst deck. Congratulations. In the top 8, we've got Luke Smythe, who took down Alphos in a show match I was casting in like the top 32. Also on Brooms and Chernobyls, has 3 Brawls, also has 2 human Sisus without any ice blocks. 3 Maleficents, and has 4 Mauis and 1 Big Sisu as well. So pretty different lists. Another Ruby Amethyst deck, which I think is the last one. This got 3rd place. It's Danielle, who got 3 Chernoblogs, 4 Brooms. Again, I would always like to see the 4th Broom. I'd definitely like to see the 4th Madam Mim Snake. 2 Pegasus, 4 Brawls, 1 Crab, 4 Libraries, 2 Super Goofs. Hello. Only 3 Goats, only 2 Castles, 1 Maui. Very interesting list, because a lot of things have been cut here, maybe to deal with Diablo. And that's, I mean, it makes sense. You've got these 2 Pegasus in there. You've got 4 Brawls. We saw some other players with significantly less. So this player was clearly fearing the Diablo. They do have the library. I feel like if you're playing 4 Chernobogs, 4 Brooms, it's a shame not to play that 4th Chernobog if you're playing 4 libraries. But the Super Goof, really, really exciting. If you lose the board, you can gain back control. Only 3 Goats. Only 3 Mauis. It's really interesting to see as more sets progress, it maybe becomes more difficult to justify playing 4 copies of lots of cards when you can play 3 copies of lots of other cards. It's a really interesting deck building philosophy. Personally, seeing 3 Mauis in a deck, I'm not sure I can get behind it, but it clearly worked very, very well. All right, we've got a few more to look through. We've got an Amber Steel from Francis Gutierrez in Birmingham on the Lantern build, kind of inspired by Brennan DeCandio, who won a few tournaments earlier in the set with a build like this. 4 Naveen's, 2 Tinks, 2 Cinderella Stout Hearteds, 1 World's Greatest Criminal Mind. The Cinderella Stout Heart is so good, but those Amethyst Emerald players with the Crab and Fox combo, or any Amethyst deck with the Crab and Fox combo, can deal with them more easily than you might hope. Another Amber Steel songs. This one lost due to time out. I think they're famous from another card game, though, and they've got a history of being quite slow when they play, so maybe they would have been rewarded by playing a little bit quicker. They lost their top 16 game for a Golden Mickey. I was casting it. It went on for like an hour, and then it went to time, and because it was 1-0 and they were down, they lost. It was a little bit unfortunate. Piglet, bare necessities, Lawrence, 4 Naveen's, 3 Cindy's. I like the look of this build quite a lot. It's actually very similar to how I play it. I think the Lawrence is a really cute idea as well for some more aggro. And is that it? That is it! Those are the top 16 decks from, or the top decks from the top 64 from Birmingham and Vegas. Big shout out to all the players. Big congratulations to everyone on those Mickeys and those qualifications and all the other prizes you get for the Lorcana Challenge events. I'm going to be in Seattle next month as a player for my first ever Disney Lorcana Challenge in North America and my first ever Disney Lorcana Challenge as a participant. If you enjoyed this video this far, give it a like. Also, don't forget to check out my Metafy groups, just like my new Patreon type of thing, which is the best place you can support me. If you want to see more content, let me know. If you want to see me play any of these decks specifically, also let me know. And enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers. Bye.